work in hospitality at a very popular chain company here in the UK. I won't mention the name, but I can honestly say it's the best job I've ever had. I didn't think I would enjoy a job so much, especially working the night shifts. When I was being interviewed, everything sounded amazing until they mentioned I would be working completely alone. I have to admit, that made my heart skip a beat and I almost refused the job. But honestly, accepting the job was the best thing I ever did. Being there for nearly 2 years has proven that. I still can't believe I work there. The staff are amazing. The guests are 99.9% pleasant. And overall, I'm very happy. But of course, where there's good, there is bad. Sure, I've dealt with awkward guests who came back drunk after a night out. I even had to kick out a few guests because they were being way too loud and disturbing other guests' sleep. So, it's not all sunshine and roses, I admit. But that doesn't put me off my job. Until one night, when a guest made me question that very thing. It happened a few weeks ago. I arrived at my normal time to take over from the evening staff. The duty manager took me to one side and gave me the rundown of what happened to her and the staff that evening during dinner service. According to her, the 2 guests, a man and a woman staying in room 1, were acting very strange. They stepped out to have a cigarette, but the guy was disturbing the guests eating dinner by slamming his entire body against the windows that looked into the restaurant, shouting profanities and making rude hand gestures. He then disappeared for a few minutes and came back with a fire extinguisher that he got from our bin shed. While all this was happening, the duty manager stepped out and gave him a warning, telling him if they disturbed any more guests or attempted to destroy the hotel property again, they'd be out. The guy made some empty, threatening remarks, then disappeared back into his room with his lady friend. The duty manager assured me that it was highly doubtful the strange couple would come out of their room for the rest of the night, and that everything should be okay. Oh, how wrong she was. After the duty manager and front of house staff left at around 11:15 p.m., I locked the doors and grabbed my panic button, something that the manager insists night shift workers wear as a precaution. Although I never had to use it, I was very glad I wore it that night. I knuckled down and got on with my duties, cleaning, setting up continental breakfast, emptying rubbish bags, counting the till, restocking juices, and defrosting pancakes, crumpets, and muffins, little but necessary jobs. At around 1:30 a.m., I had just finished mopping and was getting ready to take a little break with some snacks and scroll through my phone in the restaurant area. I was just about to take a bite when, all of a sudden, I heard the hotel door open. It was the couple from room 1, making their way outside to have another cigarette. Going by what the duty manager told me about the guy, I didn't feel safe at all being alone in the open. So, I gathered all my things and made my way to the office, where I could lock myself in and keep an eye on them through the CCTV monitor. Some time went by, and the lady made her way back in. She did not look well. She was walking so slowly, like she was in pain, swaying while she walked, stopping every few steps. But she managed to get back into her room. From what I could see on the monitors, the guy, however, was not in a rush to go back. He made his way to the hotel with his key card and decided to explore the restaurant area. At first, I thought he was looking for me, and I almost opened the door to let him know I was there, until I looked up at the monitor, and there he was, standing on a table and dancing. Now, I know that doesn't sound threatening, but you have to admit very strange behavior. So, instead of opening the door, I decided to observe him for a while. Over the next hour or so, his behavior went from strange to downright disturbing. He started by just dancing on a table, then danced around the restaurant area, then made his way to the lobby area where he decided to stand very still, like a statue. Then, a few seconds later, move position and stand still again. Not very threatening. I was giggling a little just watching him do whatever the heck he was doing. But the worst was yet to come. Around 2:45 a.m., the guy was still acting strange. He was constantly going in and out of the hotel, dancing some more and jumping around. Then, he decided it would be a good idea to take the condiment tray, take a seat on the chair behind the desk, and start drinking the ketchup and brown sauce. Okay, now his behavior has gone from strange to a bit concerning. I was not about to open the office and tell him he needed to stop what he was doing and go back to his room. Being a lone female worker, I wasn't about to put myself in any danger, but I wasn't in enough danger to call anybody.
So, again, I just watched him.
As time went on, his behavior slowly went from concerning to disgusting. Around 3:25 a.m., after he finished drinking the condiments, he got up, took his shirt off, and wiped away the sauce that was around his mouth. He then draped his shirt over the desk chair, walked around a little bit until he came to a complete stop and slowly turned his head towards the office door. Now, I'm scared. The way he slowly walked towards the office door, the way he made direct eye contact with the camera, as if to say, "I know you're in there, watching me." He pressed his body against the office door and started kissing it while making direct eye contact with the camera. Then, he started putting his hand down his shorts, and yes, he was doing exactly what you're thinking. I felt sick. My whole body froze like I couldn't believe what I was looking at, but I knew I had to do something, and fast. So, I pressed my panic button and called the police. I wanted him gone. Time was passing fast, and pretty soon, breakfast service would be starting. I didn't want any other guests to be in danger. As I was on the phone with the police, I spoke in a kind of whisper talk, so the guy right outside the door couldn't hear. I told the dispatcher everything, and of course, they sent a call out for officers to come to the hotel to see the situation. It was just before 4 a.m. when the police officers arrived, and the guy was still in the lobby area, but not doing what he was doing before. Instead, in a very dramatic way, he went down on his knees and yelled, "Not me, not me." I made my way out of the office, feeling safer now that the police were there. While he was still on his knees with his hands above his head, I told one officer everything that I told dispatch. The officers tried to communicate with him that he and his lady friend needed to leave the premises. There was a language barrier. I think the guy was Eastern European. He kept saying, "Not me," or "I know." One officer asked to be led into his room to check on the lady friend. As soon as I opened the door, we were hit with the foulest of smells ever. It smelled like urine and feces, bottles of beer scattered everywhere, hard drugs on the bedroom desk. The lady friend was sat up naked on the bed, drenched with urine and alcohol. I'd never seen anything like it. After much arguing and a lot more police officers arriving with a riot van, the guy was arrested and put into the back of the van. A relative arrived just before 6:15 a.m. to collect the lady. They couldn't have been more apologetic, trying to explain to me that both of them had mental issues and had been missing for days. I tried to be understanding, but after what I saw at that moment, I just wanted them gone. By 6:45 a.m., the police and the couple were gone, and the day manager arrived. I told them everything and showed them what had happened on the CCTV. They gave me a big hug and praised me for how I handled the situation. But all I wanted to do was go home, take a long hot shower, and go to bed. I was exhausted. It's been a few weeks, and I was told the guy was charged with indecent exposure, and the lady is staying with a relative. I do hope that both of them get the help they desperately need. As for me, I'm still working there. I'm not about to let one major incident make me leave a job I love. But what it has taught me is to always, always trust your gut. If I didn't run to the office when I did, God knows what would have happened to me. I'm a male nurse, and I have been working in a hospital nearby. It was a long commute and extremely unbearable. Once I finished my contract with the hospital, which was a year, I decided to apply for another job, one that was a little less stressful and disorganized than the hospital. I got a job at a child psychiatric unit. Working with children with mental illnesses seemed like a meaningful job. The hospital left me with this feeling of trying to save people who were going to die anyway. But with these kids, I could make a real difference. I was all around excited about it. The pay was even higher, which had me excited too. The only problem was that the only shift available was the night shift. The hiring manager told me that there might be a day shift position available within a couple of months, and I would be the first one to get it if it opened up. But that was about it. So, there I was, helping kids at night. The only problem was that they were all asleep for the most part. The only time I got to do anything was when one of them woke up or started misbehaving. About a month went by when something moderately frightening happened. It was a night like any other. I was sitting at my desk, charting some stuff I'd done with the kids earlier that night. I heard a noise that I did not quite recognize at first. It sounded like some of the kids were wrestling or something, but on the bed. I got anxious as I didn't want to go in there and see the mentally handicapped kids having sex. Call me cynical, but that's where my mind went immediately. But when I got in there, I saw something that I don't think I can ever unsee. I turned the light on to see one of the older kids trying to smother another one. The kid who was doing the smothering had no previous incidents of violent behavior. I didn't personally know these kids well enough because I didn't work during the day, but I knew their cases well enough that the kid doing the smothering had bipolar disorder, which was pretty severe, but he had never had a violent outburst like this. It was just so unusual. I immediately pulled him off the other kid, and then he started fighting me. He reached around his head and punched me in the nose at a weird angle. This kid had to have been 11 or 12 years old, and I was honestly surprised at how much force he had behind his punch. He didn't break my nose or anything, but he bloodied it up. My adrenaline kicked in after that, and I was able to restrain him without a problem. I called for a nurse from another unit in the building to come over and help me. It felt like it was forever waiting for this other nurse, but she got over it within a few minutes. The entire time I was waiting, though, I couldn't help but look at this little kid who had nearly murdered another kid. When the other nurse got over, we gave him some medication that would knock him out and put him to sleep. I asked the other nurse, Carla, what I was supposed to do. She was there for a few years before me, and I assumed she would have a good answer. We just do everything you can do. Violent outbursts don't get kids thrown out of here, she said. I was a little shocked. I argued with her a little, but that was what it was. I tried talking to the kid who was being smothered, and he didn't have a whole lot to say about it. He said that he didn't know the other kid that well, but they never had a negative incident up until this night. This was a few years back now, and I cannot ever forget how I almost watched that kid die. If I had been just a few minutes later, he probably would be dead right now. It wasn't long after that experience that I started looking for another job. I got one a few weeks later and did my best to explain the situation to my case manager. She didn't seem to understand or care, but that's not my problem anymore. I am a 19-year-old female college student. I work part-time at a grocery store, and at the time that this event happened, I was doing a closing shift from 7 p.m. to 12 a.m. The first 2 hours were pretty normal, and went without any trouble. Around 9 p.m., the store was pretty dead, so my manager told me to close my register and gave me a cart full of returns to do. I was halfway done with the cart and was on my way to put back some toilet paper. Some quick information about the layout of the store. The registers are all very close, and there are 2 entrances at both sides of the registers. The cleaning supplies, pet food, and frozen aisles are located to the far left, where there are no entrances and you can't see anything from the registers. It's the perfect place to take out your phone and text your friends without getting caught by the managers. Anyway, the toilet paper was at the end, and I headed there but made a quick stop to put back some body wash 2 aisles before the toilet paper. I felt someone walking behind me, so I turned around and saw a tall black man behind me. He just looked at me while I put the body wash on the shelf. I didn't think anything of it at first, because I thought he was just waiting for me to move out of the way so he could browse through the body wash. I quickly finished putting them back and headed to the next aisle with my cart. I didn't look back, but I could feel him walking behind me. I proceeded to turn to the next aisle to finally put back the toilet paper, and after I did, I turned around, and he was just staring at me. I politely asked him if he needed any help, and he shook his head and said no. I was just following you because you're very beautiful. Do you have a boyfriend? I was kind of creeped out, and I didn't have a boyfriend, but something told me to say yes. So, I said, thank you, but I do have a boyfriend. He stopped smiling and then asked me if my relationship was serious, and I said yes. He then just said, well, I'll see you around, and he turned around and left. I was freaked out and asked my manager if I could take my break because I didn't want to be doing returns while the guy was still in the store. 15 minutes passed, and I went back down. I looked around and thought the man had left. My manager sent me back to my register because we had a couple of lines around 11:30 p.m. I looked up and saw the man walking towards the registers. I tried to hide and usher a woman with 2 full carts to come to my lane, and she did. I looked again and locked eyes with the guy. He hurried to my line and he only had 3 items, so the lady with the 2 carts let him go in front. I greeted him since it was part of my job, and my manager was around. I asked him for his rewards card and scanned his things. His total was around $12, and when he opened his wallet, I saw that he had a couple of 20s, 10s, and some 100s. Normally, people would give me a $20 bill since it's the closest to his total, but he pulled out 100 and gave it to me while winking. I gave him his change, and he just looked at my name tag and said, "Good night, beautiful." Once I saw him leave, I let out a deep breath and kept on with my job. So, at 12, I turned my till in to say good night to my manager and headed out to my car. I am generally a paranoid person, so I locked my doors as soon as I was inside the car. I turned it on and waited for it to warm up since it was cold outside. I looked at my phone, and out of nowhere, I decided to look up. When I did, I saw the same guy jogging toward me. He was halfway through, and I immediately backed up and started heading out of the parking lot. He then ran back to his car and started following me.
I stopped at the light right as I exited the parking lot. He got extremely close to my car. I couldn't even see his headlights.
I then started driving and made a wrong turn to see if he was following me. He proceeded to make the same 5 turns as me, and I'm convinced that he was following me. I decided to go back to the main road, and he followed. As soon as I was back on the main road, I tried to think of what to do. I called my mom, and I was with her on the phone, almost crying, and then I saw red and blue lights behind me. I pulled to the side and saw a cop car behind me. I rolled down my window, and the cop proceeded to tell me that I was driving without lights on. I was in such a rush to get out of that parking lot that I forgot to turn on the lights of my car. He asked for my license and registration and went to his car to check them. I saw the same guy that was following me drive past me and park about 25 meters in front of me. The cop then came back and gave me my things and just told me to turn on my lights and be more careful. He then asked if I was okay, and I told him that the car in front had been following me since I got out of work. He then told me that he would take the license plate of the car and then told me to speed up a little above the speed limit and that if the car matched my speed, he would stop it. The cop then gave me his number to call him and let him know when I arrived home. I did what he told me, and the car also followed at the same speed. So, the cop stopped him, and I continued driving home. I got home and quickly got inside my house and put the alarm on. I called the cop and let him know that I arrived safely. He then let me know that he had given a ticket to the guy and that he would keep tabs on him for a while. I thanked him, and I haven't seen the guy again or received any information from the police.